What's up guys, welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
They were the strongest fighters in the Empire, handpicked by Emperor Rudra, and the Emperor must have been the one who lent them their ultimate powers. Diablo described them as borrowed, not acquired through personal effort, and that was exactly why they didn't work on him. If you didn't have insight into the essence of power, and how to make it your own, then all the strength in the world was meaningless. It was as true for Calgaro as it was for the dead single digits. As Diablo put it, he was fighting too soon, a reality he couldn't deny, no matter how much he wanted to. There was no winning this. He knew it now, but even so, he'd still try with everything he had. He had to retaliate, at the very least, or else all this was for naught. He had to deny that at all costs, and so he challenged Diablo to a truly reckless battle. But by now, it barely even counted as a fight. For Diablo, who had correctly assessed Calgaro's current abilities, it was little more than a procedure. Even the God-class armor and all its mighty force couldn't be fully utilized by Calgaro as he stood now. The armor had accepted him, but they still weren't at a heart-to-heart level of communication yet. God-class gear had a will of its own, and there simply wasn't enough time to build a relationship and have this armor truly recognize him as its true master. A tool only had meaning if you could use it well. There was nothing sadder than a tool without a user who could bring out its full potential. So Calgaro, the last surviving member of the Imperial invaders, was defeated, unable to even make Diablo fight him seriously, and with that, his soul was reaped.
Volume 13 Epilogue. The Deeds of a Demon Lord.
Calgaro awoke to a warmth gently enveloping him. Where am I? He had trouble remembering what he was doing before he came here. Panicking, he looked around, only to find himself resting in a somewhat large chamber. Joining him was a young girl with bluish-silver hair, maybe 12 or 13 years old and working on something with an angelic smile. Gazing at her from the side, he saw her holding her hand out above someone who was lying on their back. A dazzling light shot from her palm, pouring down upon the line of familiar-looking people on the ground. Is that Krishna? No. Krishna was killed before my eyes, wasn't he? The haze instantly dissipated from his mind as all his memories came back. They were at war, invading the land of monsters. Calgaro hurriedly shot up, attempting to shout something. But then he lost the ability to speak. Amazingly, the dead Krishna gently opened his eyes and looked right at him. Just like Calgaro, Krishna seemed pretty confused about where he was. His eyes followed the silver-haired girl around, unable to parse what was happening. She kept up her mystery work, apparently not noticing they were awake. Bernie and Jiwoo were lying in front of her now, and next to them were Calgaro's staff officers and aides. What's going on? They were all killed, too. In his clouded mind, Calgaro tried his best to calmly analyze the facts presented to him. But there was just no comprehending this. They were all dead, he was sure of that. Their chests weren't heaving up and down, they couldn't have been breathing. But when that girl put her hand over them, they magically came back to life, one after another. There were a dozen or so Imperial officers gathered in this room, and before long, she finished treating them all. Once she did, the girl gave a little satisfied nod and turned toward Calgaro.
Hey! You awake? How are you feeling? Can you remember your name?
Her voice was casually unconcerned, but Calgaro didn't mind. Her charming looks were one reason, but the sheer presence she projected told Calgaro that any resistance was verboten. Still, he could not give her a reply. Neither could anyone else. They all kept their mouths shut, completely lost to what was transpiring. Even the single digits Bernie and Jiwoo were listlessly staring into space. Now the girl sensed that something was amiss with Calgaro.
Oh, did I mess something up?
She asked, looking troubled.
I'm pretty sure the spell went off without a hitch.
From that, Calgaro realized they had all been subjected to some kind of magic. But what type? No. It can't be. That's ridiculous. Completely impossible. But his body felt just fine. Wait. There was one thing off. The power that once flowed in him, practically bursting at the seams after he was awakened, was completely gone. All he could comprehend was that something awful was happening.
I'm sorry. Aren't we dead?
That gingerly asked question must have helped the rest of the group clear their minds of any cobwebs. The light returned to their eyes as they sensed just how abnormal this situation was. They had all been murdered by a demon who called himself Diablo, that much was certain. The demon had no reason at all to keep them alive, either. That's why Calgaro was wondering why he was breathing right now.
Oh, you remember now? Can you tell me what your name is?
Yes. It's Calgaro.
Then a possibility flashed through his mind. Perhaps this girl might have saved Calgaro and his staff from that life-or-death situation. But was that even possible? Rescue from that hellhole was all but inconceivable. That demon was beyond powerful, ripping Calgaro up like a paper doll after he acquired that ultimate force. To say nothing of the single digits over there. Nobody could beat a demon like that. Nobody except for the heroes he had heard rumors about.
Did you save all of us, perhaps? What happened to that evil demon?
He finally dared to ask it. Then,
"You'd best watch your tone around Sir Rimuru."
the booming voice was familiar. It was exactly like the one that belonged to that blood-curdling demon. But an even more pressing issue was how he just mentioned Rimuru, the name of the demon Lord Calgaro had set as their primary objective. Now Diablo revealed himself to them all. A paroxysm of fear made Calgaro tremble, but the girl stopped the demon.
I think some of you might have the wrong idea about everything, so let me explain. Yes, you are all dead. All the troops you led are dead, too, and I sincerely doubt there are any survivors. So it's not like I saved you guys or whatever. I did bring you back to life, though.
Truly an impressive, unheard of spell. I won't ask you to thank him for it, but you should at least be awed by Sir Rimuru's sheer greatness.
Huh?
Calgaro could do little more than grunt at this incomprehensible explanation. But nobody was laughing at him.
Can you quit with that act, Diablo?
My apologies. I simply want to spread the word about your magnificence to these poor, ignorant masses.
Yeah, and I'm telling you I don't need you to.
Nobody in the room had the energy to interrupt this little act. But after a while, the girl smiled at Calgaro.
Anyway, looks like your memory is fine. Glad that whole ritual ended up working out. Okay, let's start from the top. I'm Rimuru. The demon Lord Rimuru. I'm kind of the king around here. Nice to meet you.
Calgaro froze. So did all the other recently resurrected. As his brain parsed the words, and their meaning slowly dawned on him, his eyes opened fully, staring straight at the girl in front of him. This little girl was Rimuru? The enemy Calgaro and his fellows saw as an obstacle who must be eliminated? Part of the octagram? That Rimuru? And judging by the context, Rimuru appeared to be the one who brought everyone back to life. This was Rimuru himself, smiling adorably, looking nothing like the sketches that were circulating. But there was one other problem.
If I could ask you something.
What is it?
Calgaro, despite his trepidation, soldiered on.
So you brought us all back to life?
Yep, that's right.
How could you?
Well, the procedure's kinda hard to explain, but like, your souls are.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, how could you revive us when we're your sworn enemy?
Oh, is that what you meant?
The girl, the demon Lord Rimuru, looked a tad relieved.
It's simple.
She blurted out.
The war's still on, but you've all fallen into my hands. You're my pawns now.
And that's why she brought them back to life? Calgaro stared blankly at her, unable to grasp her meaning. The demon Lord Rimuru revived them? Who? Us? Astonishment, confusion, and fear filled his mind. The same was true for all the others who were recently revived in the chamber. And it would take quite a while before the dust settled. I left the confused Calgaro and his gang in their room, full of all the real important folks from his army, the supreme officers who led the imperial invasion. Like I told him, I brought them back to life so I could use them as pawns. And yes, it was Raphael that offered up the idea. Raising the dead. Ever since Xian's death, Raphael had been busying itself analyzing the structure of souls. Now it seemed like it was well on its way to figuring out almost all the principles. Whether it belongs to a human being or a monster, all souls have a set quality and quantity. It is composed of matter known as Datta particles, and through managing and applying certain forces to them, it's possible to control life and death to some extent. The souls of plants and animals house only a very tiny amount of energy. Human souls, meanwhile, have tons and tons. We've already confirmed that a certain amount is given to everyone equally, and the ability to fully harness that soul energy leads to the manifestation of soul powers, or what we call special skills. This data, engraved in your soul since birth, is the source of those powers. So is the data written directly onto this energy? Not exactly. First, there's the ego, a set of amorphous wavelengths within the soul, and the group of data particles that surrounds it. This is known as the heart, and that's where all the data is stored. The crystallized energy that covers this heart is what we call the soul. Our pseudo-souls were developed as a receptacle for the project of this very heart. Hearts housed within pseudo-souls like this have no energy of their own, but they do have egos. Without the power in one's soul, the owner of the soul cannot use any skills, but they can take action with their egos. So the way I revived Calgaro and his friends was by using pseudo-souls to substitute for their real ones. Basically, I took their souls, plucked the hearts out of them, and transplanted them into the pseudo-souls, along with the bare minimum amount of energy necessary to keep them going. There was some concern about the success rate for this operation, but it looked like everything worked, which I was glad about. But it wasn't without its problems. First off, it weakens you a lot. Which, yeah, of course it does. I took all their soul energy out. I've taken their souls, and there's no real reason for me to give them back, and I don't see how they have any right to complain about it. So thanks to that, they're no longer able to invoke any skills. Even if skill data was written into their hearts, they can't use it at all without enough soul energy. From now until the natural end of their lives, they've got no hope of learning or using a single skill. It'll also affect their magic casting abilities, but that at least is something they ought to be able to improve with practice. Once they get the hang of it to some extent, they'll be able to tap into magic without using any soul power. Magic is a skill, but it's also an art, and that means it's possible to invoke it with the magicules in the air instead of those in your body. So arts are still available to them, as long as they train themselves enough to earn them. Unless they rely on their skills for everything in their lives, I think they'll bounce back just fine. So yeah, they can get super strong again if they want to, but the quality of the energy involved isn't what it once was, so they're gonna hit limits sooner or later. Bear in mind, I only developed the pseudo-soul as a toy to help us play around in the labyrinth a little. I don't want anyone to start expecting miracles from it. Still, it worked well enough this time. I didn't revive them for their own sakes but rather to prevent any hateful rumors about us from circulating.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the new members of AnimeKouhai supporters: Carl Stephen Bernadelle, Tank Bailey, Gareth Hashimoto, Zach Rosen, Byron, Steven Madison, Micah Stern, Kim Man, Homelike Drop, Fuzly Topadar. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.